So to explain how a PN junction works, we need to look at the band structure of the PN junction. Now, I don't think you'd be asked to memorise this. I imagine if it came up in a question, they would probably give you it. So I'm going to just insert a picture of it and then just talk it through. So the excess holes in the p-type tend to raise the valence band, and the excess electrons in the n-type lower the conduction band. So when you put both of these together, you get a structure like this. So this area in the middle, right, the slope in the conduction level, conduction band acts as a barrier. So this is, just to be clear, this is what we have when we call an unbiased PN junction. Now, unbiased means no external voltage applied. So we need to recognise these phrases. And so the slope in the conduction band acts as a, the phrase would say, is a potential barrier. So for instance, for silicon, it's around about 0.7 volts, which you might remember is the switch-on voltage for a NPN transistor that you met in NAT5, or the switch-on voltage for an LED. So yeah, it's the minimum voltage. We're going to have to do something with this built-in 0.7 volts to overcome it. So electrons can't move in this circuit. Okay, we've not applying any voltage anyway, so we're not really expecting that anyway. So what happens if we do apply a voltage? Well, there are two ways we can apply a voltage. What we call reverse bias, when we're acting basically with the barrier that's already here to make it even harder for current, or forward bias, where we try and get rid of the barrier. So we'll start with reverse bias first of all. Once again, I'll insert a picture. So reverse bias means that we're acting with the junction that's already there to make it even bigger. So we're dragging down the conduction band on the n-type. And that would happen when the p-type is connected to the negative end of the battery. N-type to positive. And so the barrier, the potential barrier, becomes larger and basically no current can flow. You can get a bit of what's called reverse leakage current, but you're talking about fractions of a microamp, and that's just from the occasional electron which gets some background thermal energy to be able to make it up that barrier, but certainly wouldn't be anything significant. So the next idea is forward bias, which means n-type to negative end of the battery, p-type to positive. And what that does then is it attempts to close that barrier. So the external supply reduces the size of the barrier. And once that external voltage is greater than the built-in voltage that we saw for the unbiased one, then basically you no longer have a barrier at all, and you can have essentially free flow of circuit current. It acts as if there's almost zero resistance in the circuit, and you can see that in the voltage versus current characteristics down at the bottom. So over this side is reverse bias. This side is forward bias. Unbiased is 0, is exactly in the middle. But you can see in forward bias, basically once you start to reduce that barrier, it becomes a bit easier for current to flow, and then eventually current starts to increase. But once you've basically got rid of that barrier, the current goes up quite dramatically. And that's why we always have diodes with protective resistors, because once you're in forward bias above that, you basically be working like a short circuit. Okay, so it's not very good for the circuit involved. So external voltage reduces the size of the potential barrier. Once it exceeds the built-in voltage, the diode has close to 0 resistance, so you can get larger current flowing. And so that now gives us an explanation for how the diode works. So you make the diode in NAT5, but now we can explain why current doesn't flow in one direction, the reverse bias, and does flow in the other direction, the forward bias. So learning outcome 2 is explaining how an LED works in terms of band theory. Once again, I'll insert the diagram. So an LED, like other diodes, when you're in forward bias, so they only work in forward bias. But when you're in forward bias, so we've got nice flat curves now in our P-type and our N-type, the conduction band and the valence band are flat. The electrons and holes flow in opposite direction. Across the junction. And some of them will jump across the graph. So basically remember that the holes are just a space where an electron should be. And electrons will naturally try and return to lower energy states. So the electrons will fall down the gap, and the equivalent way of thinking that is that the hole jumps up the gap. When they meet, which is called recombination, then the electron has lost energy. It's moved from a higher energy level to a lower energy level, and just like we saw in spectra, a photon is emitted. Now, this happens in standard diodes, standard PN junctions, but more often than not, the photon produces in the infrared region, so you can't see it, and also the junction is in the middle of the actual structure, so even when they are produced, it just tends to heat up the structure a bit. But if we design it so that the junction is near the top, so you have a very flat structure rather than a kind of boxy structure, and you choose your materials so that the photons are visible, then you can have an LED. So in LEDs, the semiconductor materials used produce visible photons. And the device is structured so that the junction is near the surface and the photons can escape. And incidentally, a reverse biased LED, no current or flow, so it just acts the same as a diode. And an unbiased one, no current or flow. You've got to flatten out those bands before you can get this recombination, so you need forward bias. And the last one I want to explain is a photodiode. A photodiode means a diode which produces current when light shines on it. So you have no other power supply in the circuit. So a photodiode is unbiased. And what that means then is there's no kind of free charge carriers around. So no electrons or no holes. And if we design it in the same way, similar to an LED, so that the junction is near the surface, then photons of incident light so we'll free electrons creating whole electron pairs. So there were no free charge carriers, but that basically means all atoms are functioning as normal. So if we knock an electron away from that atom, not only do we create an electron which can conduct, but we also create a hole, because there's now a gap where an electron should be, which can conduct. So it creates a whole electron pair, or electron hole pair, doesn't matter which way around you call it. These charge carriers can now move, i.e. conduction takes place. But if there was no photons there, it wouldn't. So you've now got a device which can produce current when you shine light on it, i.e. we've got a photodiode.